Good day everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before I begin my content today, I will first start off with a thank you to two of my good friends and our local distro, Tech Dynamic. Starting off with the air cooler from Scythe known as Fuma 2 Reversion B. Thank you Yong Kit for lending me this unit over here. And at the center, known as the Thermalright Peerless Assasin 120 Black. Thank you Jeffrey, who have provided this for me, and I'll be returning this to them. And last but not least, this is coming from Deepcool, known as the AK620, and it was loaned through our local distro, Tech Dynamic. Thank you very much. For those of you who are actually not aware that I've actually done 3 separate videos on these 3 air coolers, you can check it out at my top right hand corner where I place the playlist. In that overview, it will talk about the structure of the heatsink, the accessories, and how you mount it on the AMD platform itself, and also inclusive of some hints on Intel platform. In today's content, I will be talking about the thermal performance of all this air cooler over here, and this will be tested in my main rig that has a AMD processor 5950X. You might be curious, why am I calling this my main rig? I have removed all my PC components from my old case known as the Lianli 011D Mini, and if you are curious on how the build looks like, click on the top right hand corner and it will take you to the URL to watch how the build look like. As why I remove all the components, because I intend to migrate everything into a new case which Lianli have provided me. That is the Liancool 3. So do take note on that video itself. Now back on the topic. To test all this air cooler in this system itself, right, I will not be using thermal paste. Instead, I will be using this thermal pad. This is a special thermal pad meant for CPU. Reason why I'm not using the thermal paste itself, because I wouldn't want to apply too much or too little, which makes the comparison not equal. So I will make use of this. First test will be all on their default fans and default build on the air coolers itself. There are some talks that I've actually done on the XMP profile and the PBO2, which I'm going to show you later. That will be the first test. Once that's done, I will remove all the default fans and to plug on to these 2 fans coming from XPG Gentle Typhoon. Reason to do this test, because I wanted to know the heatsink itself, how capable they are. If they're going to use their default fans itself, right, I can't tell. So by using a standard set of same fans on each individual heatsink, I will be able to tell which heatsink is good and which heatsink is scoring average. This is the UEFI of my motherboard, which is the ASRock X570 Taichi. I've only set the XMP profile and having the Infinity Fabric frequency at 1600. Reason being, right, my RAM's clock speed is at 3200, so I just want to fix it there. Next is actually to set the VCall offset settings, which is -125 millivolts. And you might be saying that, why am I doing this since I'm actually testing the thermal itself? Now, as I mentioned to you, I'm using a thermal pad instead of the paste itself, so I wouldn't want to overrun my processor. That's the reason why I just leave it as it is. These are actually my default setting when I'm using it. And of course, having the load line calibration on the vCore is level 3 and the SoC load line is level 3. On the PBO2 itself, I've set to default on PPT 142 and the EDC as 140. The only thing that I pump is only the TDC itself, which is 106. I expect the system to run just above 4.1 megahertz, and it will stay there. And looking at the curve optimizer, all cores I have actually set to 12 except for core 6 and core 8. Reason being, right, those are my 2 strongest core and it takes up a lot of power, so I can't reduce any further down, so I set it to 5. Now in the process of testing the air cooler itself, right, you will see something like this. Now what does this shows? Basically the individual air cooler, as you can see here, I've actually labeled them, and this over here, and this is slightly blackout. Reason being, this is the default that I've been using all these years, which is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 280. This will, just as a gauge, how well does the air cooler perform compared to a AIO itself. And of course, the main attraction is not on the AIO, but on the air cooler. You will see all the temperature here, and you will see the usage. I'll be using Cinebench to do the testing for all of the coolers. Then you will see that you will stay consistent at which RPM on the fans itself. These are default as mentioned, the first round. Then you will show you the V call. Then you'll show you the wattage drawn and all the PPT and TDC and EDC, just as a fair comparison, that I wouldn't someone to tell me that, you know, I've set one cooler on certain settings on the PPO2 itself. So all these are standards. Something to take note when you are viewing this test over here, it's best to watch it on your desktop or on your smart TV. Don't watch this on your mobile devices. The reason being, right, this timestamp on the Cinebench itself is going to be very small. So it's going to be a 30 minutes run. Once that's done, right, I'll talk about the results and to let you guys know how I felt about the default fans on the default air coolers. Then once done, right, I will do the swap. As mentioned, all the fans, I will remove them off and to test them on the XPG Gentle Typhoon coming from XPG. Let's begin. 30 minutes have passed and it ended the Cinebench benchmarking on the 3 CPU Aircooler. I should have actually mentioned at the beginning where I introduced the methodology of how I do the testing. This is in an open bench test, so do take note on that. And also on the fan curve itself, right, I've not set anything on UEFI, I just set it to auto. I will let the heatsink fan, or should I say the air cooler fans, to draw whatever power is required to cool down the heatsink. Now looking at the results itself, right, as you can see over here, the temperature between the Fuma 2 and the Peerless Assasin 120 Black, they are neck to neck, pretty close. And looking at the fan specs, the actual fan specs, on the Fuma itself is 1500 and on the Thermalright itself is 1550. But when I run the test itself, right, the max I can see on Fuma is drawing at this RPM, which is 1440. And for the Peerless Assasin 120 Black, it's running on 1412. That's the max. Else for Deepcool itself, right, AK620, I wouldn't know why the figures on the RPM is so high as the actual specs is 1550. But this is what I witnessed. Probably you guys can actually do the playback on the video to read these readings. And the temperature is amazing. I should say it's 2 degrees lower compared to the first 2 air cooler, be it whether the minimum or the max. That's why I've actually placed the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2280. This is actually a liquid cooler. It's not related to this test itself, but just as a gauge for you to see that between the air cooling and liquid cooling. Now with all this status over here, right, I can't tell which heatsink is performing better based on the fact that all this RPMs is actually fluctuating. So what I've intended to do, which is on this next slide, I will be swapping out all the default fans out using only the Gentle Typhoon from XPG, and these are the specs over here. I would expect it to run at 2100 on all this heatsink. From there, then I'll be able to derive which heatsink is the champion. Here we go. The results are out. And at the top section here, these are all the default fans on their respective CPU Aircooler. And the winner, in fact, for the first round is Deepcool AK620 by default. But when I change it to performance fans, which is the Gentle Typhoon from XPG, and expected all the RPM meets the requirement, as in like the stated facts, or should I say the specs from the official website is 2150. Most of them hit the target, if not even more. And I am quite shocked that it's no longer the Deepcool AK620. Instead, it's the Scythe Fuma 2 reversion B. This is the pure winner. If you change to a performance fans, and neck to neck, quite close to Fuma, which is the Thermalright Peerless Assasin 120 Black, is just only 1 degree difference from the Fuma 2. And I was quite shocked to see this result. Probably I know why this is happening. Let me just bring you to the actual fin stack and to show you what my thoughts are. Having a closer look at this 3 air cooler itself, I have my own opinion on the fin stack. If you guys think that I'm right or wrong, you can just comment on my comment section below. Now I'll start off with the Scythe Fuma 2 reversion B. Reason is actually doing very well at the second test itself when I place a performance fans itself, right? It's based on the fact of the fin stack itself. If you have noticed that on my video with this overview of this cooler itself, right, I like the design of the fin stack very much. And it happened that it's not only looking good, but the design itself, it's with function. So it's pretty cool. And looking at the gaps here, right, it's all widely spread, as you can see. And there's one inner fin and the top fin, things like that. So it makes dissipation of heat easier to go through all this fin stack. That's the reason why when I place a performance fans that has plenty of static pressure, right, it just push through. And with that help, right, the heat dissipation from the block to the fin stack is even more. And not only this, if you were to compare between the Assassin and the AK620, right, if I were to put this here, you will notice that at the back it's of the same width, see? And with the AK, it's the same. The only difference is actually the front of the Fuma 2, whereby it's wider. And having to say so, right, with a wider surface area, it will conduct more heat. You might look at it, this is very short, but due to the design of the fins itself, it's brilliantly done, where it's widespread as mentioned. If you compare to the Assassin, these are very narrow, the gaps. And also to the AK620, the gaps are very near. As compared to this is like, wow, graciously spread out. This is the reason why this took the top spot at the end of the session, whereby I placed the Gentle Typhoon. Next will be the Assassin, or should I say the Peerless Assasin 120 Black from Thermalright. Now this comes in second place itself. Reason being, the first thing, it is black. As you know that black is a good conductor of heat and a good dissipation of heat. Now do be careful if you're purchasing this heatsink itself. Make sure that your case have ample airflow. If you are putting this heatsink in a very small case and without good airflow, all the heat that is accumulated inside your case, right, will go to this heatsink itself, and this will cause thermal performance on your processor. Reason being, right, there are no cool air going to the heatsink itself to cool off your processor. Now next thing, why is this number 2 as compared to the AK620? As you can see, right, you might say that, okay, if I were to put it this way, you'll feel that this will be taller than this. It should perform better than the Thermalright. However, say if I would to count the actual width, I mean the height of the fin stack with this, take a look. See, can you see the difference? The actual fin stack is this much over here compared to the AK620. And best part is the top of the Thermalright is in fact metal, so it adds on to absorption of heat. Else for the AK620, right, these are plastic. So there you have it. I've actually compared the three air cooler neck to neck to each other. So by the end of the day, if you do ask me which would I prefer, I would still get the Thermalright, though the Fuma 2 is in fact the top spot when you place a performance fan. Reason being, right, this is so sleek, it's black, and I kind of like it. But be it, this is up to individual preferences. Now you can choose either of this air cooler, not a problem, because the margin of being the top, right, is only about 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. In fact, from here to here, right, if you use the performance fans, it's about 2 degrees difference. So don't take it that the AK620 is not performing. It does. And if you were to not use the performance fans, right, if you were to base on the first test itself, you should get the AK620 with the default fan, and that will actually solve all the problems, as in like whether should I get additional performance fans which cost more. Alright guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed what I've shared with you, and for those of you who are actually new, if you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. Till then, take care, goodbye, see ya.